Every time I see this thing smile, I cringe. Hello everyone and welcome to my info dump on Davy, my Veldigun OC existing in the world of Dreams of Insomniac, made by Past Respect. If you somehow haven't watched Past Respect or don't know anything about Dreams of Insomniac, which if you don't, what the hell are you doing here? Go watch that. Go watch it now. Quick disclaimer on a quick content warning. I'm gonna be covering some heavy topics on mental health, and there's gonna be some discussions of murder, blood, gore, just common things you often associate with the horror genre, I guess. So if you're uncomfortable with that sort of stuff, recommend not watching this video. While this will have visuals, and I'll have some behind the scenes images if you want to look at those. However, this video is just mostly going to be me talking. So if you want to do something else, like draw or something while listening to this, that's fine. It shouldn't impact your experience too much. I don't know how to segue, so let's just get started. So, basic information on Davy. Davy is a Veldigun living in the world of Dreams of an Insomniac prior to the rewrite. He is a combination of the Ether family. I pronounce it as Ether. A family of 6 whom he killed when he was still a premature Veldigun. Davy's main goal is to find a companion, whether it's a human, an animal, or another Veldigun. Davy has a love for animals and likes to people watch. They are very anxious and tend to cling to anything and anyone to feel secure. They struggle with auditory hallucinations and panic attacks, which cause memory loss. Davy believes he has a special connection with the oldest son in the family whom he killed, David, which is why Davy's named Davy, by the way. It's because David. He named himself after David. Whether Davy actually has a special connection with David is debatable. Pronouns, mostly masculine and neutral pronouns, like he, it, they, just any pronouns except she. They are aromantic and asexual. Romance is not a theme I'm going to be exploring in Davy's story. I'd say they're probably around 20 years old after the Esther family murder. I might change that because, I don't know, I feel like 20 years is a lot. So, we'll see. As for design, Davy is a very large Veldigun. I'd say around 5'9", which I might make him a little shorter, because again, that's really big, Jesus Christ. He has a very plump body with twisted appendages, like his tail and his arms wrap around himself, horns. If you look, you can see all the twists. He has a black body with blue stripes of varying shades. Excuse me. He wears a purple shaded onesie with large neck fluff rather than a hood, which I imagine would probably be a variation of Clyde's onesie, since I base the onesie off Clyde's design. I like to think that Davy probably stole, a onesie from Grimzos, just because I think it's funny, and I don't know how else he would have gotten it. So yeah, I'm just gonna, for now, that's canon. He stole a variation of Clyde's onesie from Grimzos. Davy's most striking characteristic is his large blue eyes, which is very important if you watch my animatics. If you've seen them, you probably know what I'm talking about. I think some people have picked up on that, which I'm very happy about. Davy has 4 eyes, one of which is inside his mouth. The large eye on the left side of his face is the only one with tear ducts, so he can't cry out of his other eyes. Only the blue eye, the large blue eye. And he also has limited mobility in his other eyes as well. So, rather uncomfortable, unfortunately. Davy has 2 tongues with blue stripes that are similar appearance to his tails. And he has teeth that wrap around most of his head. I unfortunately do not have a reference for how far his teeth wrap around his head. So, in the hypothetical, if someone else were to draw him, I'm sorry, I don't know how far around his teeth wrap around his head either. You just have to be like me and wing it. No one will notice. Trust. As for images, here's kind of a full body in the animatic. That's how I usually draw him. Here's my reference sheet for him, which is slightly outdated. I think I'm gonna, at some point I want to kind of change the color of his face since the animatic is a much different shade of blue. And I want to change the onesie too. At least the neck fluff part. I don't know, I'm probably gonna keep it like this, but we'll see. This part of the body is definitely gonna stay the same. Here's a quick height comparison I made. I just googled average female height, average male height, and then Davy. So yeah, as you can see, yes, very large, very intimidating. His extra legs are about this height. I imagine they'd be a little more around here, because his torso, it starts around here. So, yeah, slightly inaccurate, but Now, if anyone's wondering why I made Davy so tall, it's because, at least with the way I draw him, I feel like he looks way too cute when he's literally a creature that murders things. So I feel like in art where I'm depicting him, about to attack someone, I feel like he'd look a lot more intimidating if he was much larger than his victim. Yeah, which kind of like cancels out the cuteness, I guess. I hope. If that makes sense. I'm kind of grasping at straws there, but that's just my thought process behind it. So, more behind the scenes stuff. Fun fact. So, Davy was originally a drawing exercise in which I tried to create the opposite of Clyde in personality and in design. Like, those, like, little that cartoon trope of, like, cartoon characters where it's, like, the evil opposite of a cartoon character, and they have, like, an opposite color, but they still kind of look the same. It was like that. So, originally, he used to look like Clyde, but just mostly blue, with curved horns like Winfrey's. As you see here, inverted Clyde from that one, Abandoned by Disney video, was my main inspiration for Davy. The reason I completely changed his design was because, at least for me, my original design kind of idea for him was kind of just, I thought of it as unoriginal, and it was very boring to draw, so I just decided to completely redesign him, and I wrote his backstory after I redesigned him. As you can see here, Davy is heavily based on Squirm from Dandy's World in both personality and in design, which is very obvious if you look at him. Fun fact, I can remember the exact moment I kind of decided what I wanted Davy to look like after I wanted to redesign him. It's funny, I was in a Sprouts with my mom, and I don't know why, I was just standing around doing nothing. I don't know why I wasn't helping my mom. I'm sorry, Mom. And I was just thinking of, like, okay, I want to redesign Davy. How do I do this? I don't really know what I'm going to do, because I don't have a lot of ideas for him right now. So let me just think of something I really like, and I'll just base my design off that. And then I was like, I meant to snap. Boom! Squirm from Dandy's World. I love this guy. He's so cute. Look at him! So I was immediately like, oh, hell yeah! Davy has always been a very sad character, so it's perfect. So yeah, that's why he looks so much like Squirm. Because again, he's literally based on him. Here's some concept art I had for him. This is when I mostly kind of finalized the design. I actually used the sketch as a base for my reference sheet. Here's me experimenting with the color palette. If I am going to change the onesie color, I'm going to change it to kind of have this neat little gradient, because I think this gradient is very pretty. Fun fact, his color palette is actually based off of Shadow Milk Cookie from Cookie Run Kingdom, which I think that's kind of funny, because both characters are just exact opposites in personality, so I don't know, I just think it's funny. At some point, Davy had yellow eyes, because I'm pretty sure, like, all Veldigun have yellow eyes, but Davy doesn't, which I'm not realizing is kind of a red herring, but it's kind of a problem. We're just gonna ignore it. It's fine. It's not canon. It's not canon to the actual series, So this is when I was first drawing out my ideas for Davy. Here he is. He used to have a little zipper right here. This is when I kind of finally decided, okay, I really like this. I'm going to use this as a base for my final design. Here's some little drawings down here. He used to have a hood. horns used to be a lot smaller. Over here was when I was very first experimenting with his head. He used to look like that. And the moment I made this, as you can see by this little star, I usually put stars next to things. Like when I'm designing something, if I really like it, I'll put a star next to it. You can tell, like here I was just like, this is like, when I drew this, it just clicked. I was like, oh yeah, I want Davy to look like that. Alright, perfect. Locking in. Now, when I was designing Davy, it was like a couple days before Clyde got a redesign. So, at the time, I was still kind of, I was also kind of obsessed with, I still kind of am the sitcom alternate universe of Dreams of Insomniac. So I kind of started playing with the idea of like Clyde and Davy interacting because I thought it was funny. So here's a little drawing I did a while ago of Davy clinging to Clyde because, Davy has a tendency to wrap himself around things. It's just kind of a compulsion for him. We have Clyde, not, as you can see, not very happy that Davy is doing this. I've always imagined Clyde to not like being touched. I don't know, I just feel like, I don't know why, I just think he wouldn't like it very much, so there they are. Very funny drawing. I'm pretty sure I have some comics somewhere of, Clyde telling Davy to kill himself. That was really random, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me. I like seeing this little shit suffer. Okay, next slide. Anyway, so as for Davy's mannerisms, so Davy has a very slouched posture. I do this because he's very timid and scared. He's very slouched over, kind of crawling in on himself. Like I said, he likes clinging to things when scared as a way to ground himself, whether that be like trees, poles, just anything. He probably likes stuff. He likes stuffed animals very much. Likes clinging to those. It's why he also often clings to himself. Because he can't always just carry around stuff to cling onto, because, he's probably going to drop it. Because he's a very quick creature, so he moves around in a panic a lot, so he doesn't carry stuff around, so he just wraps his arms around himself as, just a stand-in for holding things. So, his instinct in fight or flight is to flee, but Davy definitely has a history of, attacking things. So that could be slightly outdated. I do feel like he mostly attacks out of anger, though, which I'll probably touch on later. Not much right in this video. Probably I have future projects where I'll touch on his murders. I'm just keeping that purposely vague for now. Sorry, I'm rambling. So, Davy does laps around the woods when having panic attacks or hallucinating to get rid of anxiety or to escape from perceived danger. He often fidgets with things. He likes to rip grass and break sticks. Do not let this guy in your backyard or front yard. He will tear up your lawn with just how much he picks at things. Fun fact, Davy's mannerisms are kind of based on my own. I like picking at things too. I don't rip grass that much, but, if I could, I would. Davy is fascinated by bugs and animals and likes watching them and taking note of what they do. He doesn't actually, write it down because he doesn't have a notepad or anything to write it down with. He just likes to observe and kind of, take mental notes. Imagine he forgets the mental notes a lot because, again, he struggles with memory loss because he has a panic attack, kind of loses memories because of the panic, and then, redoes things, because, he can't remember doing them. Davy likes watching people. He specifically likes watching people interacting with each other, so, families, friends. I don't really think he likes to watch couples, because I don't think he is, because, again, he's romantic and asexual. He's just not interested in romantic love, so he just doesn't watch couples that much. The reason he's so interested in, people interacting with each other is because he's kind of, I guess, envious of those people. He wants what they have. So he, kind of, watches them as a coping mechanism. Which, yeah, this guy's definitely a stalker, by the way, so, what do you expect? He's very jumpy, flinches at sudden noises, very keen senses, and is a very light sleeper. I'm making this canon because the series is so dark. I need to add some happy here. He loves hugs. He's also very fluffy, so he's very pleasant to hug. If you were to hug him, he would really like it. The computer I'm using to record this on is turning off, so I'm just gonna hope it keeps recording, because I'm tired and I don't want to check. As for personality, if you couldn't tell by me constantly bringing up anxiety when talking about David, he is a very anxious character, to the point where it affects almost all of his decisions. If Davy were in an environment where he didn't have to be scared, he would be very curious and creative. I think he'd definitely be an artist, and like he'd like to study bugs. I think he'd like to draw bugs or just make crafts of bugs in general. Regardless of anxiety, Davy has a desperation for connection, whether it be healthy or not. This is because he's been on his lows. He's just been alone for so long that he's just desperate to be near other living beings. As for personality traits, I'll just list them off here. Anxious, rejection sensitive, very trigger happy. When I say trigger happy, I don't mean just as in anger. I mean just all emotions in general. Very jumpy. Resilient, because he has had to deal with mental crises for years. And this guy's been through hell and back. I imagine he could, like, he's very sensitive, but, he can lock the fuck in when he needs to. Very curious, like I said, sensitive, an observer. He doesn't like getting involved in conflict, and very emotionally motivated. Now, just a quick disclaimer here. I just want to make this clear. Davy does not have any canon diagnosed mental disorders. He definitely has them. There's no denying that. But I do not have the credentials to diagnose him. I don't know, I guess the only thing I could say is he could have ADHD or OCD because I have those things, but when writing Davy's character, I wasn't really writing him with those two disorders in mind, so I guess no, he does not have them. I can confirm that he likely has one or multiple anxiety disorders, so, maybe he does have OCD, I don't know. And definitely has traits associated with inattentive ADHD and autism. I don't think hyperactive ADHD, because, I don't know, I just don't imagine him having hyperactive ADHD. And just want to make this very clear, while Davy definitely has traits that could be symptoms of borderline personality disorder, BPD, mention this because, again, Davy's main motivation is finding connection. People often associate troubles with connection with BPD. Now, when writing him, I did not intend for him to be a character with borderline personality disorder. Whether he has borderline personality disorder or not is up to the viewer's interpretation, although I don't think he does. But, again, while I have done research on borderline personality disorder, I feel like no matter how much research I can do, especially since I'm very young still, and I don't have borderline personality disorder, I just cannot truly understand the scope of a personality disorder. So I just do not want to, come out and be like, oh, Davy has borderline personality disorder, because I feel like I just get that totally wrong. Also, Davy literally kills people, so I don't want to feed into the stigma that people with borderline personality disorders are inherently immoral, because I hate that trope so much. And I'm sure people with borderline personality disorder probably don't like that trope very much either, so I don't want to feed into that. So yeah, no. Davy canonically does not have borderline personality disorder. If you want to headcanon him with borderline personality disorder, go ahead. Just don't expect me to purposely explore the idea of him having personality disorder in my future projects with Davy in them. Thank you. Okay, as for backstory, to the fun part, Davy's personality is a combination of the Esser family. Fun fact, the Esser family is named off of a restaurant near my house. If you're one of my friends watching this, you probably know what restaurant I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into anything further because I don't want to give away where I live. But, I don't know, I think it's kind of funny, so I just want to mention that. The Esther family is a family of 6. Yes, that is a reference to the fact that the number 6 is constantly used in Dreams of Insomniac. There is no major lore implications for the Esther family being a family of 6, other than, it's just a big reference to Dreams of Insomniac. Nothing major there. So, Davy murdered this family while still being a premature Veldigun. When I say premature Veldigun, I mean, I kind of always thought of Veldigun as, I don't know if this is still canon, but I'm pretty sure Veldigun are creatures that, kind of feed off their victim's personality. Again, I still don't know if that's canon. I struggle with, picking up on context clues in Dreams of Insomniac. But Davy is based off that idea. So, just keep that in mind. So, when I say premature Veldigun, I mean, before he kind of had a personality, I guess you could say. He was kind of more like an animal than a living, fully, I guess, human. He's not human physically, but mentally, I guess you could say. Davy murdered this family while still being premature before escaping the Esther family home, leaving their bodies to rot. What happened to the bodies is up to interpretation. I don't know what I'm going to do with that plot point. I'm trying to keep things vague because, again, I do have future projects planned for Davy, so I'm trying to be vague, but it's a little hard. I imagine Davy stalked the family and examined their behavior and mannerisms before murdering them, which will be important to Davy's interpretation of the family members later. Davy now roams the woods and nearby roads, fading in and out of coherence, trying to make sense of his new form and personality. I remember there was someone on Tumblr who actually sent me an ask of them breaking down the entire my entire animatic and trying to figure out the story, which, holy shit, thank you so much. That genuinely made my day. But they mentioned in their posts that they thought that Davy, after killing the Esther family, stayed in the Esther family house years or just time after he killed him. He killed them. Now, I did not originally intend for Davy to, be living in the house after he killed the family. I imagine he escaped and wandered the woods. But I'll be honest, that idea is so cool, I might incorporate it into the story later. So just keep that in mind. Again, I'm still writing Davy's lore. It's very up to interpretation because, again, it's mostly expressed through animatics, not a written, coherent format. So, I'll probably change it later, but, I just realized I spelled the Esther family wrong in the caption here. These are my own characters. Why am I... and I can't even spell their name right. Great. Yay. Okay, anyway. So, moving on to the Esther family. This is how they are canonically. I'll go into how Davy views them in the next slide. So, here's just a quick overview on them. So, Marissa, yes, they all have names. Marissa is the mother. I'd say she's around 40 years old. Probably older, because, again, they had a lot of kids, so I might have to change their ages. She loves fashion and creating things. She worries about her children a lot. I don't think, by the way, I just want to clarify, I don't think the Esther family it was definitely not, an abusive family. That's not a theme here. They definitely had struggles because, mental health was a huge issue in their family, but I wouldn't describe it as abusive in any way, I guess. I don't know. Maybe someone else could describe it as that, but I personally wouldn't. And Marissa, I like to think she manages her own small business, selling little jewelry and things like that, because I think that's nice. So, the father, Justin, sorry, I keep moving around, there's a lot of background noise. He is the father. You are the father. He is 39 years old. He loves studying bugs. I purposely put that there. Davy likes bugs. I'm trying to put hints as to how Davy got his little quirks from. Also worries about his children, and he works as a lawyer. I might change that because, I don't know, he doesn't look like a lawyer to me. I don't know, when you think of a stereotypical lawyer, Justin is not what I think of, so I might just change it just because, just might as well. But at some point, I did have the idea that maybe if Veldigun can, like, take after, you know, their victim's personality, I think it would be funny if Davy has, like, extensive knowledge of the law, although he doesn't know where he got it from Justin. However, that's probably not canon anymore, even though it's funny, because, again, I don't think Veldigun inherit memories from previous victims, just personality traits. But, again, I don't know. If they do, that's canon, because I think it's funny. So, Penny, who is the youngest of the family, she is 8 years old. She is an animal lover and wants to be a veterinarian, which is where Davy definitely got creative side from Penny and Marissa. She is very excitable and creative and never leaves her mother's side. Kevin, who is this little bastard down here, he is 9 years old. He is a troublemaker, and he actually has a bald spot in his hair because he purposely put gum in it to annoy his parents, so they had to cut it out. By the way, if you notice here, he has 2 missing teeth, which is where Davy's fangs are. Yes, that was intentional. It's a little evil design. So, Kevin is I'll be honest, he's just a huge reference to Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Like, he carries around a tiger plushie, which at some point Davy owned this plushie, but I feel like he probably lost it at some point, which I might bring up in a later project, but that's just kind of on the back burner for now. So yeah, very obvious reference to Calvin and Hobbes. His name Kevin is also a very obvious reference. You know, for anyone who knows who Calvin and Hobbes are, you are the GOAT. Be my friend. So, Vanessa, as you can see in this photo right here, originally her name was Savannah. I don't know why I changed it to Vanessa. I think I just forgot her name, so just ignore that. It's Vanessa. It's not Savannah. It's Vanessa. So she is 17 years old. Might change her ages. All the characters' ages because the parents are like. When I was thinking of the parents' ages, I wasn't really thinking of how old the kids would be in compared to the parents. So I don't know. I feel like that would get a little weird. So apologies for that. I'm not in the mood to do that math. So just I don't know. Just leave it. Just leave it. Just trust. Leave me be. So yeah, 17 years old. She is working to be the most successful in her senior class. Very much an overachiever. She is prepared to get a degree in psychology. Vanessa is constantly worrying about David, which I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the oldest son. She's a very anxious person, is not diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, even though she probably has one, I'm gonna be real. However, I don't want to explore, these characters too much. They're just the family that affect David. I'm just gonna say it. They're kind of plot devices. I try to, give them details to make them their own characters, because, I know they're fictional, but I feel like just making them plot devices, just purely plot devices, is a little, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me, so I try to make them as in-depth as I can in this context, but, there's only to some extent I can do that, unfortunately, because, again, I'm focusing on Davy for now. So, as for Davy's interpretation of the Esther family, I just realized, I do have a slide for David. Okay, just don't worry, I'll touch on David in the next slide, just be patient. So, Davy doesn't know much about the Esther family, as he was only able to get a small view of their lives in the days leading up to their killing. He knows the least about David because David was in the mental hospital for most of the time Davy watched the Esther family, which is why in the beginning of my Moorbound animatic you see David coming out of seemingly a hospital. So David only appeared when he left the mental hospital like the night before Davy murdered the Esther family. All notes in this slide are based on Davy's limited view of the Esther family and his hallucinations. So these aren't entirely accurate to actually how the family is. It's just his interpretation of them. So Davy's hallucinations are themed around his guilt for killing the Esther family. So that's definitely going to be based around his interpretations of them. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Let's get started. So, for Marissa and Justin, the parents, Davy just thinks of these two as the parents, as he does not know their names. He remembers them as mom and dad when he watched them. Like, not his mom and dad. He just knows they're called mom and dad. But yeah, again, he doesn't know any of the Esther family names, except for David. Davy, often hallucinates their voices arguing. He can never tell what they're arguing about. They just sound like muffled voices to him. Like, when you're listening to a song, you can hear a person, like, singing, but you can't make out what they're saying. It's kind of like that. He usually hears them arguing when he's trying to sleep at night. He finds them very annoying and scary, and on bad nights, infuriating. Davy often tries to escape the voices, which is why he does laps around the woods. He's definitely tried to attack them at some point, to no avail. I imagine if he tried to attack them, like, he'd go towards the voices, but the voices were just getting farther and farther away because they're not real. These hallucinations stem from memories of studying the Esther family before he killed them, when the parents would often argue about David. I imagine the parents would often argue to each other on how to, help David, because it's clear David was going through a lot at this time, struggled a lot with mental health, and, this is actually based off my own experience with mental health, so I imagine when parents, when you have so many kids, especially very young kids, along with a 16-year-old who's struggling with their mental health, that's definitely going to cause conflict between the two parents, because it's just like, how do you take care of this kid that you care about? So that's definitely, something explored there. But keep in mind, I just want to mention this real quick, Davy does not have, visual hallucinations of these guys. The only reason these guys, the Esther family has, reference sheets and, physical forms in my animatics is because that's the only way I can represent Davy's hallucinations in a visual format. And it's just, I think, if you want a canon explanation for why they have a physical appearance, it's just how Davy imagines them. So anyway, let's move on to Penny and Kevin. Davy very lovingly refers to these two as the little bastards, as he doesn't know their names. He often hallucinates these two whispering about him, often nitpicking everything he does. Davy thinks of these two kids as annoying and troublesome, constantly judging his every move and keeping him from any peace. He definitely, he still feels guilty for hurting them, but he can't help but feel annoyed and just angry constantly every time he hears them, because, he's just trying to sleep, and these guys just keep talking shit, supposedly behind his back, even though Davy can very clearly hear them. So yeah, natural to be annoyed. So, Vanessa, Davy refers to Vanessa as the Banshee, because, Davy often hallucinates distant wailing, and he thinks the wailing is Vanessa coming back from the grave to haunt him for destroying her family. It's like a spirit. Davy's definitely believes in the supernatural. He thinks of all of, the Esther family Esther family members as, kind of spirits coming back to haunt him, or he's very superstitious. Except for David. I'll get into that later. As you can see, I have a reference sheet for Savannah, because I had an idea for how Davy thinks of her. So this is her design for, if in future animatics, when I'm showing Davy's hallucinations, I just said future animatics, I don't know if I'm going to make future animatics, we'll see. But future projects with Savannah, when Davy hallucinates her, this is how she will appear. I try to make her look like a banshee, or just banshee vibes, very much crying, this neat little dirty nightgown, which I very much like. All the Esther family members have blue eyes. I just want to, Davy has blue eyes. Just, that's important. Next up, let's see. Now on to the ultimate fun part. The most, arguably, I guess, all the characters are, most arguably important character to Davy's character. So let's talk about David. Oh boy, David. Okay. Davy has the most interesting interpretation of David. So, David is when he was alive, he was a 16-year-old boy who struggled a lot with anxiety and depression. He also, unfortunately, struggled with self-harm. Unfortunately, I might want to change this because the only reason he struggles with self-harm is because I wanted to signify in the animatic that he struggles with mental health, and self-harm was, like, the main way I could think of because I put eye bags on a lot of my characters. And I don't know, I feel like that feels a little... I'm now realizing that feels a little gross to me. Oh, it's not that bad, but it's like, you know, if his SH scars are just going to be there just for the purpose of signifying, hey, this guy is not doing so well. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. People, you can tell me your opinions later. I might change it. We'll see. He also has grippy socks from the hospital. Yellow grippy socks. He likes wearing them. So, back to Davy's interpretation of David. So, rather than viewing David as merely another of his victims, or just like a spirit come back to haunt him, he sees himself as David. Or sometimes he even believes he is David, or he believes he is spiritually connected to David in some way. So, these beliefs stem from Davy not getting a lot of time to observe David like he did with the other Esther family members, because David was in the mental hospital, leading to Davy projecting a lot himself, much of his behavior and stuff onto David. So Davy thinks he takes after David in almost everything. In reality, he takes after the other Esther family members more than David, I'd argue. I am purposely gonna make David, kind of a very vague character. Like, I don't want many people to know what he was like in real life. Because, again, it's part of the fact that Davy projects himself so much onto David. So it's kind of the tragedy of just, like, this guy, David, just, in Davy's mind, he just doesn't exist. Like, because, again, he just thinks of himself as David. He's not, like, David is not his own person in Davy's mind, which I feel like just adds another layer of tragedy to this murder. So that's why I'm trying to make David's character so vague. However, I hope I'm doing it right. So, Davy, the fact that, Davy thinks he's David, it also comes from the fact that he has never hallucinated David's voice before. In reality, I think the reason Davy has never hallucinated David's voice before is because he never really heard David's voice often. I'm now realizing that's not really how hallucinations works. Hallucinations are, like, kind of a really confusing thing. I feel like even scientists don't know a lot about them currently, I think. David appears as intrusive thoughts to, Davy. These intrusive thoughts are based on my own intrusive thoughts from my obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't know if anyone with OCD can relate to this, but I have a type of OCD where it's like, my intrusive thoughts, at least for me, they're so vivid that I can't really do this anymore. I could if I tried, but I really don't want to. Where I could get anxious enough where I could have full-on blown conversations in my head with my intrusive thoughts. These aren't hallucinations. These are just me, like, having intrusive thoughts and talking to myself based off of anxiety. Which, maybe if Davy has these intrusive thoughts and they're based off my OCD, maybe he does have OCD. I don't know. I'm still exploring Davy's personality, so I'll think about that later. So, the intrusive thoughts, they stem from having, even fewer, I've already mentioned this, having even fewer memories of David than he had of the other Esther family members. Here is David's riff sheet. Here's the little monster form. Again, this is how David thinks of, Davy thinks of, I keep mixing up their names. This is how Davy thinks of David. Yeah, despite him thinking of David as himself, he still has an he still imagines David in kind of his own form. based off the animatic, his eyes are kind of meant to look like they're, I guess, punctured, if that makes sense, because if you saw my animatic, the way Davy murdered them was that he kind of took his tails and kind of stabbed the eyes. So here it's kind of meant to look like, they're punctured. I don't know if it really looks like that because he has pupils, but, I try my best. He also has very sharp teeth because Davy thinks of him as very intimidating. He kind of resembles his premature self, if that makes sense. Very blue. Blue stripes to kind of represent the self-harm. Again, I don't know if I'm going to keep that. Claws, kind of like dried blood. Dave would probably imagine him having dried blood. Just because, again, he thinks of David as just being a very unsettling character. Whether David is definitely not, one thing I can confirm about David, he was definitely not a violent person when he was alive. At all. Davy just thinks of him as a violent person because Davy thinks of himself as violent. So in turn, he thinks David is violent. Next slide. Jesus Christ. I still have 3 slides left to go. So, Davy now. I will not go into detail about this aspect of Davy's story for now, since I want to create content about it in the future. Specifically, I've considered kind of trying out a narration, writing my own thing and, narrating it. We'll see how that goes. It's gonna be a while before I start on that because, summer's coming up. I still have school. I gotta deal with that, even though I really don't want to. So I just gotta wait, unfortunately. So, Davy, as of now, has murdered 7 people. The Esther family and an old man. Davy currently resides in a forest near an isolated town called Barren Creek. Barren Creek does not have any association with, the town in the current Dreams of Insomniac lore. It's kind of a separate thing. The townsfolk and the police are aware that something strange is happening in their town with Davy, but they aren't entirely sure what's going on. And the Lankman Foundation do not know about Davy. Maybe that'll be a plot point later, but for now, definitely they do not know about Davy. So, in my animatic for Sweetmeat, the song Sweetmeat, I had some, I try to do the thing where it's, frames flash very quickly on the screen. I don't really think a lot of people looked at those because, I don't know. I feel like it was kind of a dumb idea on my part because, not everyone wants to pause and, try to look at the frames. So I just decided to put them here and I'm going to read out the text I have. So this is a note between, 2 human characters that I will probably make important in later projects, but for now, they're just anonymous. Alright, here is a note I made. Note begins. You and I both know that no human could have done that to him. So, unless a boa constrictor broke into blank's home and wrapped itself around him so tight that it broke both his arms and ribs, eventually suffocating him, it had to have been one of those things. The creatures have long, bendy arms, right? I'm assuming they can be pretty strong, too. Write me back now. I need your help. We are in danger. I might change the note a bit later on, but that's what it is right now. As for the news story, again, I'm just going to say blank for redacted stuff. The only reason it's redacted because I haven't created names at the time I hadn't created names for anything yet, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Okay. Starting the news article. Last night, the blank family reported what they described as an unsettling wailing coming from the nearby woods. It sounded like a scared cat if its voice were lower, said Mrs. Blank. It was the loudest, most unsettling cry I've ever heard in my life. It scared my poor twins half to death. The next morning, Mr. Blank contacted the sheriff to report the strange occurrence. Upon request for comment, Sheriff Blank replied, "We suspect that the wailing was from some sort of wild animal. What animal? I'm not sure, but I'm certain that our town is not in any danger." And then the text cuts off. Here is the third. I think this is not the third frame. I think this is the second frame that's cut off. It shows the aftermath of the old man that Davy killed. I try to make it look scary. It does look a little goofy to me, unfortunately. But yeah, it's here. It's supposed to be implied that Davy squeezed him so tight that he suffocated, and he broke his ribs. So I'm imagining ribs kind of came through. That's why it's kind of bloody here. I originally wanted to make it brown because dried blood, but I just was like, no, I have to make it red. It looks like poop if I were to make it brown, so that's why it's red. Purple fingers because again, suffocated. Yellow eyes because he's been there for a while. Police shine light on him. That's how they found him. Next slide. Okay, now that I've discussed all, kind of the serious story beats for Davy, we're just gonna have fun, okay? This is just, fun little things I did for Davy. So, just gonna go to likes, dislikes. I have a mood board and some music up here, if you want to look at that. So, I think Davy likes blue and purple. The fact he likes blue so much, because he is blue. He just likes blue. I imagine he likes blueberries, because again, blueberries are blue. He likes blue. Drawing with crayons. I wonder what color of crayons he likes to draw with. Just take 3 guesses. You get $1 if you guess right. He loves studying bugs and animals, as I've mentioned multiple times. He loves to talk and have conversations. I'll explore all these fun parts later on. Because, again, Davy is going to interact with another Veldigun at some point. Another Veldigun OC. Ooh, be excited for that. I don't know what I'm going to make. I've already made him. I don't know when I'm going to post him, but we'll see. So, he loves comedies. He loves to laugh. Because, again, laughter, kind of takes away from anxiety. Surprisingly, Davy actually does like horror media when with friends. I think he specifically likes ghost stories. Because I think he thinks that the fear he gets from ghost stories is kind of comforting in some way, if that makes sense. He loves sensory toys. Again, he likes picking up stuff, so I imagine he likes sensory toys. Definitely loves soft things like blankets and stuffed animals. He likes to lay in the sun. I like to think of him kind of as mannerisms of a cat. just for the funsies. He likes to stargaze. Of course, he loves hugs, cuddles, the sky. He's so cute. I love him. I want to hug him, even though he's a murderer. Please, if anyone's interested in drawing him, please draw him hugging something, because he likes hugging things. Yeah, unfortunately, that has led to several people's death, but, it can be wholesome. It can be wholesome. Davy does not like gore, sudden noises, bright lights, the feeling of being lonely or abandoned, specific noises like the clicking of a fan or certain pitches in others' voices, which is based off me. Definitely does not like large crowds. Doesn't like doing nothing because when he's bored, this is also based off me. When he's bored, he just gets time to not distract himself, and he just becomes anxious, and he's like, oh, I gotta do something. I don't like this. And he dislikes himself with a sad face next to it. He doesn't like himself, this poor guy. My Shayla. Okay. Anyway, as for music, I put general vibes down here as music. I imagine the music kind of related to them is kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's very I guess sparkly sounding electronic music. So the song Clear Eyes, the song Ketamine, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and Menlo Park. To me, those songs kind of feel like if Crystals were electronic music, if that makes sense. That's kind of his vibes. So also the song Crystals, that should be up there too. I just unfortunately do not have it there. As for mood board, I made this in Procreate from photos from Pinterest. I imagine, of course, I try to put kind of disturbing imagery kind of related to body horror and bones. It's got some skeletons here. Of course, it's all blue. Got some stuffed animals here, creepy looking stuffed animals. And of course some kind of bluish kidcore vibes. So blue crayons, blue marshmallows. I think Davey would like marshmallows, by the way. Blue stuffed animals. I also have blue broken glass. I don't know. I associate broken glass with excuse me. I associate broken glass with Davey, and I don't know why. Along with a little, blue street lamp, snow. I associate rain and snow with Davy. I think he'd like those, because I like those too. If you couldn't tell, I base some aspects of Davy on myself. I do that with a lot of my characters. It's not unique to Davy, just want to make that clear. I do not relate that much to Davy. It just happens because, again, it's the easiest way for me to write characters. And that's all I have for now. I think I might have something. Oh, yes, more fun stuff. Just some art. I made this a while ago. This is mostly, again, before, maybe this is after Clyde's redesign, I just hadn't drawn it yet. This is, in the hypothetical of Davy existing in the Dreams of Insomniac sitcom AU. Ignoring the fact that I think Clyde would absolutely despise Davy, if he were not to, I think they'd get, I like to think that in a universe where, Clyde does not despise Davy, he would just, like, pick him up and kind of bring him to Alex's house and just be like, hey, I got us a new roommate, so here's a little comic I made, I made with them. I'll do my best to voice act. Okay. Alex, I got us a new roommate. Clyde, what the fuck? Can we keep him? Look at it. Of course you want to keep him. Look at him. So here's Davy and Avery interacting. Oh, what is it? I also have some other comics that I might post at some point if I remember. Here's Davy looking sad. He's very sad. Also, I just realized in this, Davy looks much shorter than Clyde because Davy is so large and, like, later on. I know this was before I thought of Davy's height, but if Davy were were canonically, like, 6'9", I just realized the significance of the number. We're canonically, like, 5'9" in this, in this current time period. That means Clyde is, like, it means in this universe, Clyde is, like, 6 feet tall. Jesus Christ. Which he probably, let's be real, they probably are in real, let's be real, Clyde is probably pretty tall. I mean, look at them. They're very lanky. They're probably pretty tall. I don't know about 6 feet, but you know. And that's all I got for now. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope I was able to, like, make it entertaining and I wasn't just rambling about stuff that people probably knew. I know the fun slide probably would have been entertaining. I just want to take a moment to thank people who have been taking interest in this series. I really like Pastra's content and art, and it's inspired a lot of my own. So it's genuinely been, like, an absolute joy to write Davy and experiment with Davy's character. It's just been so fun. It's been so fun. And I'm just so happy that people are interested in him. So just thank you so much. Thank you to all the people who are tuning in. So yeah, I've said thank you so many times. So yeah, I'm tired. It's almost 10. I gotta stop. I want to play Cookie Run Kingdom. So thank you for watching and bye. Hey, Dad. Dad? Father? Father? Help! I need you to type in the password for your computer so I can pause the recording. It turned off and it's still recording, but I don't know how. Father! Father, why have you forsaken me?